Like everybody else, you kicked my butt on Friday. Oh, I can't believe you didn't call me.
But it's not hard to do that. But anyway,
sad but
Stephen,
true.
all of these things are a reality. No more applying for asylum by internet on an app. He doesn't need immigration reform, Trump. He's going to stop it cold. And when he waxes a couple of cartel heads, which I think he will.
In this one, we're going to have a look at a conversation, a mini debate of sorts between Bill O'Reilly and Stephen A. Smith on News Nation with Chris Cuomo. And now that Donald Trump has been inaugurated and moved into the White House, Bill O'Reilly and Stephen A. Smith break down what's next and sparring over immigration and Trump's recent executive orders. Now let's have a look at this conversation between Stephen A. Smith and Bill O'Reilly.
Stephen A. Smith, the host of the Stephen A. Smith Show, and author, journalist, historian Bill O'Reilly. Gentlemen, thank you both for being with us. Bill O'Reilly, we talked a little bit last night about the pardons, and you said it was going to be iffy, but this point of how Trump starts motivating his agenda and executive orders and all the litigation, he can't really get it done himself. What do you think needs to happen for him to get Congress to act on what matters?
Well, it depends what he wants to do. So there are two tracks here. There's the political track about pleasing his base, and then there's a realistic track about what can happen. So birthright citizenship, that's in the Constitution. Can't sign an executive order to overturn it. He knows that. But there's no downside for him to do it because his base likes it. So he gets popularity points. They used to call them brownie points, but it doesn't mean anything. Same thing with the pardons. He didn't go over each pardon, and some bad guys got out. About 10% of them shouldn't have been pardoned, and we've been doing it all day, looking at who got pardoned and what they did. About 10% shouldn't have been considered. But again, to Trump, he wants the popularity to continue in his precincts first, and then he'll get around to problem solve. And I believe he will. I believe that is coming.
So the question becomes motivating Congress to do what he can. Like, let's start with the big ticket items, Stephen A. It's got to be immigration, right?
Yeah.
Now, you could argue TikTok may be stepping in front of it right now, and he may need Congress for that also.
Yeah.
But when you look at, like, the win-loss percentage here and what would be the real bar, the real measure, Congress has to be part of it. Huh?
Congress, you would say Congress has to be part of it, but you have to pay attention to the kind of cachet he has to compel them to do his bidding. And knowing that he is the kind of individual that's basically had control of the Republican Party since 2016, basically has had the power, or at least came across as having the power, to get other folks removed from elected office because he can turn their constituency against them because they're not doing his bidding to some degree. They've walked around with fear, and that's one of the things that I've argued on so many occasions with so many Democrats that I know. They hang on to his every word. Just like Bill just said, there are certain things he knows he can't do, but he knows politically it looks good. And because politically it looks so good, he rallies the troops behind him and compels those who are supposed to be on his side to act in accordance with his wishes. And if you don't do it, you're going to get bounced out of there. He knows that. And as a result, they were always fearful of going against him, even when he was out of office, when he was in Mar-a-Lago and Joe Biden was in the presidency. How many times did we see one Republican after another walk around looking like deer in headlights, scared out of their you-know-what, to utter a negative syllable about this man? Why? Because they knew it would get themselves in trouble. And this is what happened. And so now he's back in office, and because he's back in office, he proved that the cachet wasn't just about him bloviating. It was very, very real, because he is now the 47th president of the United States of America. If he had them compelled to do what he wanted to do before, what do you think they're going to be like now? I don't want to say the word puppet, but it applies.
I feel like you said it. Bill.
You know, I got to disagree with what Stephen A. Smith said right there. In Trump's first term, when he had the House and the Senate like he does right now, he wasn't able to get anything done because the Republicans were opposing him. These people weren't scared for their jobs. They weren't bloviating. That was complete nonsense. And then in the second half of his first term, when the Democrats won the House, they impeached him twice, and there was no hardline defense of Donald Trump from the Republicans, except for maybe a handful of individuals. Now, granted, those impeachments didn't get past the Republican-led Senate. But how bad would that have looked for a Senate to impeach their own party's president? That was self-preservation for themselves within their own party. And I got to push back on the premise from Stephen A. Smith where he said that the, Republican leadership was so scared of Donald Trump in his first term that just think of how bad it's going to be in his second term. And let's not forget that in 2020, Donald Trump received the most votes in history as an incumbent president. But let's get back to this because I really want to hear what Bill O'Reilly has to say.
Bill, you want to be a great man. Looking at your book. Looking at your book about the presidents and take it wherever you want. But, Bill, I just want to make a point that's in your book. Every one of the presidents that you take time in the book to kind of highlight as a standout did something that they couldn't accomplish on their own. Do you think that President Trump is aware that the guys on Rushmore were not solo acts?
No, because he doesn't. That's not what he does. He doesn't analyze.
You didn't read the book?
One, I have a patent, Stephen. No. I think he watched the News Nation special. I know he watched the News Nation special.
Like everybody else, you kicked my butt on Friday. Oh, I can't believe you didn't call me.
But it's not hard to do that. But anyway,
sad but
Stephen
true.
A.
Yes, sir.
I have a patent on the word bloviate, by the way. So every time you use it, I get a quarter.
Okay. Well, I'll give you $1.
This Donald Trump thing isn't new.
Right.
So Lyndon Johnson perfected this. Lyndon Johnson, as head of the Senate, if you didn't do what he wanted and you were a Democrat, it was going to be bleak. And Nancy Pelosi was the smoothest operator. She basically said, look, you vote my way or you're not getting a dime from the DNC to run for re-election, and we'll primary you and you'll lose. So this is not new. And you're correct in Donald Trump intimidating his own party. But remember, the things that he wants to do, that Trump wants to do, he wants to do them fast. Mm-hmm. And that's good. That's a good thing. So he's saying, look, get on the train here. And if you're not on the train, I'm going to boot you and get somebody else who will be on the train. I don't see that as a bad thing. As long as the legislation, like the Lake and Riley bill that passed yesterday, and 12 Democratic senators voted for it, and the loons who didn't vote for it, boy, I mean, it's stunning. So you think it's okay for a foreign national to be arrested for a crime and not be turned over to the immigration authorities? That's what you're voting against?
It was a bad look. It's like the Nancy Mace bill.
Come on.
Yeah, it was like the Nancy Mace bill. It just doesn't make sense.
The one thing I wanted to say, getting back to the Democrats, is disregard. You have to be careful to not fall for the okie doke, for every little thing that he throws out there. Because like Bill said, there's certain things that he's doing just for pomp and circumstance to make it look good. And he knows he's not going to necessarily get it done. But that doesn't stop them from overreacting to it. And if you overreact to it and use every little soundbite that he throws out there, or every little insignificant act that you know he's not going to be able to push through, and you react to that, you're reminding Americans of why they voted against you in the 2024 election. You cannot do that. If it's something substantive that's a real threat in your eyes that you feel he can push through, react to that. Make it real. But when it's something that you know is going to amount to nothing, why engage him in that? Because you're falling right into his trap when he does that, because he has proven in terms of headlines, in terms of sizzle, in terms of sparking a conversation and creating provocative dialogue, he has proven to be an absolute master at that, to his advantage more so than theirs. They have to make sure that doesn't happen to them.
Let's take a break. I agree with your analyses. He's the biggest dog in the pound. There's no question about it. But he doesn't have to worry about next time, and they do. Do you believe that that is at least the beginning of an incentive structure for them to want to pass legislation, at least on immigration reform?
Well, immigration reform will pass in some form, but it doesn't have to. With what Trump has already done, state of emergency, designating the cartels as terrorist groups, remain in Mexico, all of these things are a reality. No more applying for asylum by internet on an app. He doesn't need immigration reform, Trump. He's going to stop it cold. And when he waxes a couple of cartel heads, which I think he will, all right, he's going to be celebrated by Republican voters. And if he can combine that with lowering prices, and
that's tough.
you know, I was reading today, it is, because if he slaps 25% tariff on Canada,
right.
gas prices are going to go up,
Yep.
at least initially, because Canada imports a lot of fuel to the United States.
Exports.
I don't think he will. I think that these tariff threats are basically to get much better deals. That's always been his modus operandi. But if Trump fulfills and makes life better economically, and the intrusion on the border lessens dramatically, he's not going to, Republicans are not having any trouble in the midterms at all.
Okay, so to answer Stephen A. Smith's question there, why does the mainstream media, the liberal media, react to some of these things that Donald Trump is saying where they know that it's not going to actually, you know, happen? Is because, well, first of all, we learned from Doge just today that the NSAID had been funding, you know, liberal mainstream media sources like Politico and some others to literally go against Donald Trump, which means they pretty much just have to do it, right? Which is great to me because it exposes that these people really don't know what they're doing. They really don't know what they're talking about. We saw just a few days ago when Trump enacted the tariffs against Mexico and Canada that both countries got in line and put hundreds of millions of dollars into protecting America's borders from their side of the border. And that only bought them 30 days of negotiations. It's Trump practicing, you know, the art of the deal, which he is a master of. He has his big ask, and then they negotiate from there. And we saw last night that Trump proposed that the Gaza Strip, potentially become a U.S. territory or the 51st state or something like that. And to me, I hope, you know, there's been a lot of speculation going on, and all we can really do is speculate right now, because until a bill is signed or some type of action is taken, we really don't know what that means. But I hope that is Trump's big ask, that he is practicing the art of the deal, and that he's basically threatening our enemies over in Iran and other places that will just turn the Gaza Strip into an American territory. And if you touch it, that means you're literally declaring war on U.S. soil, which is going to initiate a harsh, fast response, which means that leadership's not going to last very long over there. We saw how Trump handled al-Baghdadi and some of these other people with precision drone strikes and precision missile strikes in his first term. And these people understand that language, right? You got to speak to these people in the language that they understand, which is death, money, and power. And so when you threaten to take any of those three or all of those three things away from them, they tend to react and respond in a manner that you want them to. And that's not me holding the bag for Donald Trump. If he ultimately makes a move towards taking over Gaza, I think it's a horrible idea. I don't want to see American troops go on the ground over there. I don't want to risk one American life in that process. And I don't really want to spend any more money. That wasn't a part of the mandate that the people set to Donald Trump when we elected him in this last election. We wanted strong borders. We wanted deportations, mass deportations. We wanted, affordable prices with housing, gas. You know how it is, right? And none of that included taking over the Gaza Strip or taking over Greenland or Canada or any of these other things that he's proposed. But as we've seen, just over this last week with the tariffs, like I said, those threats, those ideas that he shot out there, we got Canada and Mexico to comply with Donald Trump's wishes. And I love it. So got to enjoy the winning. He ran that he would get these things done. And within the first 2 weeks, he's gotten so much done. So I'm looking forward to the next 4 years of just constant winning. You know what I mean? And hopefully we agree with everything that Trump does. It's not really a realistic expectation. But ultimately, if we end up in a better place than we started, I'll take it. And so anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. If you agree with that, if you're an America First type individual, you are in the right place. So make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Share this video to your friends in your group chat if you think this is some valuable information. And other than that, I want to remind you, you can catch me live every Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time on this channel with the Jar Openers podcast. We have a Discord. You can click the link down in the description. And I just want to say thank you for watching to the end. That helps me out tremendously. And I'll see you guys in the next video.